Hurricane Katrina happened in late August and early September of 2005.
Katrina was a huge, significant event. It was all over television, and many of the images were shocking. And so people wanted to come together, and the Community Engagement Center was being a vehicle or container to help organize such events and to be able to go do the work in New Orleans that needed to be done around hurricane relief.
The first group from Macalester went. We actually took a train in January of 2006. It takes what we had seen on the news and read about in the paper and makes it real in a really profound way. When you would stop and take a break from mucking out a house or clearing a yard and you would look around, there were volunteers and folks who were deeply concerned about what had happened from all around the United States. And it was really powerful to see what that response looked like from everyday citizens who were not necessarily skilled in this way. That is the lens through which you are thinking about your work or your education once you return to Macalester. Things simply cannot be the same.
And then we started to think about how do we continue to collaborate and to do the work of engagement. The activity for sure, but then what happens with the meaning making after the trip? Why do we do what we had just done?
Our ethic of service at Macalester is deep, multifaceted. We don't do a lot of one-time service. We don't have a lot of one-offs. That's simply not how we move through the world or do this work.
And by the time I started to join the endeavor around 2009, we began to shift a little bit more away from the hurricane relief into the development of the partnerships. Therein lies some of the earlier sparks, if you will, of going down that path about getting a chance to know a community. It takes time. Relationships take time.
When the city is your guide, I often find myself wondering, oh, what does this look like in St. Paul? And so it doesn't stay exclusively in New Orleans. It becomes the lens with which I approach being a community member here.
It's kind of difficult to go to New Orleans and not be impacted, right? The city is such a vibrant city.
Our hope is when the Bonner Community Scholars, faculty, or staff return to Macalester, that they are asking themselves questions about this place based on what they know of how New Orleans works.
There's two basic ways to learn something. One is to read about it, or two is to experience it. And so in this case, we try to combine the two. And again, New Orleans lends itself to this kind of high-impact learning because of the city itself, the history, the second-line traditions, the food, the festivals, the charterization of education. It is also one of the most incarcerated states in our union. Those are topics that lend itself to say, hey, these are national implications as well, and they show up in a certain way in New Orleans. And we engage with people who are doing the work on the ground level. Or Molly Olson wrote a book called The Gift of the Community. That's what it is. It's a gift to the community to bring people out. Some critics will call it wasting time and wasting resources. We think the inverse is true, right? More of us need to get out of our homes. Maybe not in January. Get out of our homes, get a chance to know one another, and they get a chance to participate in that very hyper-local activity. And anytime we do that, and we come back that evening for reflection, they say, oh my goodness, there's one thing to read it, but it's a whole nother thing to experience all that.
I think one of the most important takeaways from our work in New Orleans is finding meaningful ways to value community as co-educators. We also do deep work with the Rondo community here. In New Orleans, the counterpart would be Treme. Interstate 10 went straight through the heart of the African American Business District in New Orleans, very much in the same way that Interstate 94 went straight through the Rondo community here in St. Paul. We're very fortunate in that one of our community partners here in St. Paul, Mr. Marvin Anderson, was able to join us and actually go to New Orleans and meet with community leaders working on what they're going to do with Interstate 10 in their community.
I hope that this particular model that we have been able to work with, and it's been collaborative here on campus, I hope that we find some opportunities to continue to invite other members of the Macalester community and our broader community to connect with folks in New Orleans and find the synergy so that we can think about how we co-create along this Mississippi River.